Hi everyone, this is Ashley with CTandRina Digitals. I'm going to do a tutorial to show you how to use my new PNG art or arch overlays in Photoshop. I have a few completed ones that I did using them. All of mine are portrait style. You can use them for landscape too. I just think that they make more of a statement in the portrait style photos. They do better on like a less busy background too. They can absolutely look good if you have a busier background too, but if you have too much going on, it can be a little bit harder to blend it. I guess maybe not, depending on the arch, but you have to sift through them to see which one works for your image. Just like any other digital or digital backdrop or overlay, you kind of want to shoot with them in mind if there's a specific one that you're wanting to use. So I have open, I'm going to do this one. I have open that image that I want to do that, and I'm also going to do a gold one. You can change, there's all kinds of styles, there's 40 different ones, they're all completely different. There's all kinds of colors, but you can change the colors if you want to. For instance, like if I just go into my adjustments and say just add a hue saturation layer, and you can play with the hue slider and change it to whatever color you want. Say I wanted like a pink, I could do that, and then I could desaturate it just a little bit to do like a lighter pink. Now this is like a darker, this is an arch for like a darker style backdrop, but there are arches in there that are light tone too, to do like a brighter pink rather than like a deep pink. But I want to keep the original color. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to select all, edit, and copy, and paste into my image. Now, another way you can do this is instead of copying and pasting, you can click on your background layer and you can go up to File and Place Embedded, and then navigate to the arch you want to use. That way it's a smart object, or you could always just, I could change this, convert to smart object, and then that way I could just right click it and go up to Replace Contents and pick a different arch if you want to go through different arches and see which one works best for the image that you're wanting to use one on. Okay, so first things first, I don't have my proportions kept because it wouldn't fit on here. Like, you have to mess with them a little bit depending on your image. But the light is coming from the opposite way on this one, so I'm just going to right click and flip horizontal. And then these look best. Don't try to like fit them like onto the backdrop and then stretch them up. That's just probably going to look funny. They look better when they're kind of outside of your backdrop. It makes it look more natural, as if it's like in the studio rather than you're just trying to like add it to your image. So you want to place the bottom obviously behind her, so it's not going to be like right here, unless you want to make it seem like, you could do that too, unless you want to make it seem like the arch is in front of her and she's standing behind it. If you did do that, actually didn't think to include that in the tutorial, but if you did want to do that, so either way you're going to need to add shadowing on each side. You can use your burn tool, but I like to create a new layer and clip it to the overlay and use multiply blending mode. That way you have it on a separate layer to work with. You can duplicate your arch layer too and work on that, but then it kind of can make the edges more pronounced, and I don't really like that either. So I'm going to go ahead and have it on multiply blending mode. My brush at about 30% is fine. I'm going to hold down my Alt key and select a color on the arch, and I'm just going to, since we're going to do it in front of her first, I'm just going to paint just enough to kind of have it blend in with the floor. And then I'm going to just create another little layer. Since we're doing it in front of her, I can't use a drop shadow, so I'm going to create another layer above her. multiply lip blending mode again at 30%. I'm going to lower my brush size to about the size of the column. I'm going to grab a color on the floor, and then I'm just going to drag a shadow across in front, just so I can make a shadow coming from the light off of the arch. And then you're going to need to add a lot of blur to the arch, because if you were shooting through it at her and she's in focus, the arch is going to be blurred. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, as much as you want, but I would probably do about that. I may add a little bit more darkness there. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do hue saturation and just show you real quick. If you want to change it after you put it in the image, you can do that too, to kind of match her dress. But it would be done. Like, that would be it for that. So I'm going to go back, because I'm going to show you how to place it behind her. I didn't think to include that in the tutorial before, so I'm glad I thought of it. So I'm going to resize again, and I'm going to put it back here, because I want it to seem like it's behind her. And I'm just going to I want it to be about here in the image, but as you can see, it's not clearing her head. So, oops. So I'm going to check my check mark for now. I'm going to go up to Filter and Liquify. Or you can do it different ways, but I'm just going to make my brush really big, and I'm just going to push this arch. I don't want to do it too much, because it'll kind of distort it, and then it won't look good. But I'm going to start with that for now. And that brought it nicely above her head. Okay, so I'm going to add my layer above my arch and clip it and create that clipping mask, so that we're only working on the arch and not the backdrop. You just hold down Alt and click between the layers, or you right click the layer and create clipping mask. And I'm going to grab my brush. I already have that color from it at 30%, so I'm just going to, multiply blending mode. Brush in that shadow. Now you're going to want to add some here too, because she's standing there. Add some to this side as well, because that'd be behind her dress there. I'm going to add a curves layer. Press this right here just to clip it to the arch. And I'm just going to I'm going to bring it down and make it a little bit darker there. Kind of match the tone of the backdrop. Okay, and then I'm going to hide my arch real quick. I'm going to go to my background. I'm going to go to my select subject, my quick selection tool, select subject. And I know they have like the contextual or whatever it is bar now in Photoshop, where you can just select subject on that. I don't have it up because it gets in my way and it annoys me, but you can obviously use that too. I'm going to duplicate my layer after she's nice and selected. It did a pretty good job, but if you needed to, you could use your plus and minus to go back in and fix it. And then I create a layer mask by pressing that right there, and then Control or Command I on my keyboard to invert that layer. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to merge my arch and all the layers that I did to work on it. And then I'm going to clip it behind by holding down Alt on my keyboard, or right clicking and create clipping mask. New Photoshop switch these all around, so I don't even know. It would be right there. So right click, create clipping mask. They're all over the place now. Okay, so now it's behind her. And then I want it to seem like it's right up a bit against the backdrop. So I'm going to actually unclip it for a second, and I'm going to go down to my styles, and I'm going to add drop shadow. The light angle is coming from this way, so we want to switch that. Make sure it's on multiply blending mode. You want to go into your color, and we'll hold down Alt, and I'm going to click a shadow on the backdrop. And then my distance I make pretty up there, and size is usually all the way up. I want it to kind of be soft and match the shadows in my backdrop. Click OK, and now I'm going to clip that behind the backdrop, or behind the subject again. And then if I zoom in, I want it to match my backdrop back there, so I'm going to add a little bit of blur. Not too much, because I don't want it to be blurrier than my backdrop, because that wouldn't make any sense because it's in front of the backdrop. Zoom in just to, okay. I think that looks good. Press OK, and then you can look at it and see if you need to add any more shadows in. I would probably make this even a little bit darker. I would just use the burn tool for that. Come over to my burn tool on shadows, and I would just add in some more shadows there because the shadows on the floor are pretty dark. And it's done. It adds very, very pretty depth to the picture. Okay, next one. I'm going to put the gold on this pretty backdrop. Select all, edit and copy, edit and paste into my image. So this one works for this one because the light is kind of falling to the front on this, or maybe from each side, not so much from the top. It would be ideal if that was a little bit brighter, which we can make it that way, but the light is coming obviously from one way on her. You just have to, I'm just going to try to make this one work, but you might have to, like I said, shoot for the arch to begin with, but you may just have to add in some shadowing with dodge and burn to kind of get the arch to match your lighting, because obviously I didn't make these for every single person that's going to buy them specifically, so there's no way to know that. Click OK. I'm going to have it behind her. You could do it in front of her again like before, which honestly seems like it's a little bit easier because it's mostly just adding blur, but I think it's really pretty when it's behind. Okay, so I'm going to put that there. I'm going to flip, I'm going to flip it because more light is on this side and that's where the light's coming from on her. Add my layer on multiply and clip it to the arch and grab a color on there and just paint in that shadow. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and merge those layers. I'm gonna add my drop, oops, I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. I'm gonna add my drop shadow. It is now coming from that way. I'm gonna grab the color again, hold down Alt and click the background. Okay, and you may need to go underneath the arch, you may need to create a layer above the background. On multiply blending mode, about 30% is fine. Grab the floor shadow, and you may need to add some shadow underneath the arch. It just kind of depends on what, like if you're working with a lighter backdrop, you're going to have to add more shadows just because it's not going to blend as easily as when you're using a dark backdrop. And then I'm going to use my burn tool to make it even a little bit darker, blended and nice with that floor. Okay, I'm going to hide that for now. I'm going to go to my quick select and select subject, or however way you are doing that, whichever way you're doing that. Looks pretty good. I'm going to duplicate the layer and create a layer mask. Control or Command I on my keyboard to invert. Make that arch and shadow visible again, and clip them both. There we go. To the backdrop, so now you can see it is behind her dress. And now all that's left to do is go up to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and add that blur to help it blend into that backdrop. Done. So pretty. You're gonna want to always add blur to these, whether they're behind or in front of your subject, because that's just the way to make it look natural. But also because I mask these all by hand. So sometimes there may be like little tiny white lines on them. This one doesn't look like it really has any at all. They're very minuscule, but that's just another reason to add the blur. It'll look very copy and pasted if you don't. It's just what makes sense for it. But you can go up to hue saturation on this too and change. Oop, you have to unclip it or it's going to do it to the backdrop too. And change the color of that too to make it a different color metallic. I did not put any silver in the collection. I did that on purpose because it's a lot easier to go from gold to silver than it is from silver to gold. All you have to do to make it silver is just add a black and white layer and merge those two together. Oop, that didn't work because I have the effects on there, so I can just clip it to that. The only thing about making it silver sometimes is you would have to do that before. I'm gonna go crazy trying to figure it out now. But you may have to up your exposure just a tiny bit for the silver. Video photographer, I would love for you to join my group on Facebook. I will link it in the description.